Good evening, students. Today we'll be dealing with the histology of cerebral cortex. See, this is the cerebral hemisphere. You can see the cerebral cortex has been thrown into gyri and sulci. General consideration. There is a superficial gray matter which is called as cerebral cortex. Then inner part is having white matter where there are association, commissural and projection fibers. And there is subcortical gray matter, example basal nuclei. The cerebral cortex is 1.5 millimeter to 4 millimeter thick. It is thickest in the gyri and thinnest in the sulci. It consists of cell bodies of neurons and their process, neuroglial cells and blood vessels. The cerebral cortex is divisible into old cortex and new cortex. Old cortex, also called as allocortex, 10%. Neocortex, also called as isocortex, is 90%. The neurons in cerebral cortex are pyramidal cells. Stellate neurons are granule cells, cells of Martinotti, and horizontal cells of Cajal. Pyramidal cells are more prominent in third and fifth layer. Stellate cells or granule cells are more prominent in second and fourth layer. Cells of Martinotti are present in all layers but more in number in sixth layer. Horizontal cells of Cajal are present in first layer. You can see here horizontal cells of Cajal in first layer. You can see the stellate cells in second layer, and you can see here fusiform cells which are also the modified stellate cells. You can see here this is the pyramidal cell, this is also a pyramidal cell in third and fifth layers, and you can see this is the cells of Martinotti in the sixth layer. Pyramidal cells, they occupy two-thirds of the cortical neurons, around 5 to 6 billion, pyramidal in shape, apex directed towards surface with large apical dendrite. Basal dendrites are coming from basal angles. Axons arise from base of the pyramid. Axons form association, commissural and projection fibers. If the pyramidal cell is small, they form association fibers. If pyramidal cell size is medium, they form commissural fibers. And if pyramidal cell size is large pyramidal cells of beds, they give rise to projection fibers. Axon collaterals form synapse with stellate and other interneurons. Stellate neurons are granule cells, small and multipolar, one-third of total neurons of cerebral cortex. Axons are short and end within the cortex. Dendrite synapse with afferent projection fibers and collaterals of axons of pyramidal cells. Fusiform cells are modified stellate cells. Cells of Martinotti, multipolar small neurons present in all layers of cerebral cortex, but more in sixth layer. They have small dendrites and there are elongated axons which runs in superficial direction. Then horizontal cells of Cajal, located in molecular layer, otherwise the first layer of cerebral cortex, integrates numerous columnar units of cortex. So actually the functional units of cerebral cortex are vertical. So those vertical columns of cerebral cortex are integrated by horizontal cells of Cajal. Again you can see this is the pyramidal cell and this is the pyramidal cell in the third and fifth layer. You can see fusiform cell, you can see the stellate cells, you can see the horizontal cells of Cajal, you can see the cells of Martinotti, you can see the neuroglial cells. There are six layers in the cerebral cortex: lamina 1, otherwise called as plexiform or molecular layer; lamina 2, otherwise called external or outer granular layer; lamina 3, outer pyramidal cell layer; lamina 4, inner granular layer; lamina 5, ganglionic layer; lamina 6 is polymorphic or pleomorphic layer. You can see here this is the molecular layer, this is the outer granular layer, outer pyramidal layer. You can see in the superficial part small size pyramidal cells, in the deep part large size pyramidal cells. You can see this is the fourth layer, inner granular layer, and this is the inner pyramidal layer, otherwise called as ganglion layer, where you can see the large size pyramidal cells, and this is the polymorphic layer. And here you can see two bands. This is the outer band of bilarger in the fourth layer, and this is the inner band of bilarger in the fifth layer. So lamina 1, which is the plexiform or molecular layer, Horizontal nerve fibers are present, which are derived from apical dendrites of pyramidal cells, axons of stellate cells, axons of Martinotti cells, and neurites of horizontal cells. And the cells are horizontal cells of Cajal. So lamina 2, outer granular layer, granule cells or stellate cells are more prominent, fewer pyramidal cells. Lamina 3, outer pyramidal cell layer, majority is pyramidal cells, fewer stellate cells, small size pyramidal cells in superficial part and large size pyramidal cells in deep part. Lamina 4, internal or inner granular layer, densely packed stellate cells, medium sized pyramidal cells dispersed in irregular manner. So though stellate cells are prominent, pyramidal cells are also present, few in number. Outer band of bilarger, myelinated nerve fibers running in horizontal direction. So these are myelinated nerve fibers running in horizontal direction. So this is the fifth layer, which contains giant pyramidal cells of beds. That's why it's called as ganglion layer. Large size pyramidal cells are present. Inner band of bilarger. Again, these are myelinated nerve fibers running horizontally. Lamina 6, polymorphic or pleomorphic layer, multipolar neurons, which are considered as modified pyramidal cells. Then cells of Martinotti are more in number. Lamina 1 to 6 is concerned with association of sensory and motor behavior. Lamina 2 and 4 are sensory. Lamina 3 and 5 are motor. Then, in addition to all these neurons in cortex, vertical running nerve fibers are predominant, and two horizontal bands of nerve fibers in fourth and fifth layers are present, which we already described as outer band of bilarger and inner band of bilarger. So types of cerebral cortex: agranular cortex, granular cortex, frontal cortex, parietal cortex, and polar cortex. So agranular cortex is chiefly motor. So granular layers are less prominent. Granular cortex, in which granular layers are more prominent. Then frontal cortex, parietal, and polar cortex will be between these two. So let us see. Agranular cortex, outer and inner granular layers are less prominent, whereas outer pyramidal and ganglion layers are well developed. Example, precentral gyrus, area number 4, primary motor area. So typical of motor areas. So granular cortex, granular layers are highly developed. Outer pyramidal and ganglion layers are poorly developed. Typical of sensory areas. Example, visual cortex. Inner granular layer is having outer band of bilarger well developed and called as striae of Jenneri. This gives the name striate cortex to visual cortex. So frontal cortex nearest to agranular cortex, polar cortex is nearest to granular cortex. You can see here, this is the agranular cortex where third and fifth layers are more prominent. So this is frontal cortex, which is nearest to the motor cortex. This is parietal cortex, which is between agranular and granular, where you can see moderately developed pyramidal layers and moderately developed granular layer. Whereas you can see here, this is the granular cortex, where you can see the second and fourth layer, outer granular and inner granular layers are more prominent. And this is the polar cortex, which is more close to the granular cortex. So here you can see these are the pyramidal cells which you are seeing here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see this is a typical pyramidal cell with apical dendrite and basal dendrites, basolateral angles. So molecular layer, external granular layer, pyramidal layer, inner granular layer, ganglion layer, and multiform layer. So diagrammatic representation, always remember, when you are drawing the pyramidal cells in outer pyramidal layer, they should be of small or medium size, whereas when you are drawing the pyramidal cells in the fifth layer, they should be of the large size. Thank you.